Tim Dillard ready to roll as he joins us each and every Monday at around 2:20 or so. Follow him on X, as you heard, at Dim Tillard. All right, Mr. Tim Dillard. Let's talk about Jacob Mizorowski. I was reading an article earlier today on BrewerFanatic.com, and I don't want to get into the minutia of attack angles and all this other stuff that five people will probably understand and nobody else. I want to get it just from your standpoint. How has he changed in your mind as far as how he's attacking hitters this year versus last year? Because it feels like he's not having the wild issues. I mean, he had the one game where I think maybe he got tired, whatever else, and walked like 3 straight guys against the Red Sox. But I mean, for the most part, he's been pretty good. His pitch counts aren't getting as high as quickly, it doesn't seem like, as it was last year either. What do you take away from how he's adjusted from last year to this year?
Yeah, I think he's, when you're tall and wiry like that, your frame, the hardest thing to do is stay compact. And right now, I think he's really stayed compact, which means he's going to throw more strikes. I know the first inning didn't go well for him. He probably could have done a little bit better, probably could have gotten a little bit more help. But I thought he has been throwing the ball exceptionally well. Last time out, before facing the Marlins, he didn't walk a batter. You start to see the strikeouts go up. He didn't have a strikeout in the first inning of yesterday's ball game. Those 4 innings, striking out 9. That is ridiculous. And what I really like, if I had to put my finger on the one thing I think that has really stepped up for him, last year the slider at times pretty much became a hittable fastball at times. And I think that's where he got hurt. This year, there's more depth on that slider. I mean, we saw lefties screwing themselves into the ground trying to hit it. If he's able to locate that, and that fastball at the top of the zone can beat anybody right now, especially 102. Are you kidding me? But that's what I see. I just feel like he's throwing more strikes because he's staying compact and not just trying to stuff everybody to death. He's actually out there pitching. It's wonderful. He's leaps and bounds that we see a 24-year-old do.
Yeah, it's crazy how good that kid is. What about Trevor McGill? Had the early struggles. Then they're like, okay, we're going to pull him out of the closer role for a brief period of time, and let's see if he can get himself fixed. And the next appearance, boom, it seems like he got himself fixed again. What changed? Can you tell anything that necessarily changed one way or the other, that it was that type of instant reaction? Because normally, if you're really screwed up, it's going to take 2 or 3 games probably to get things figured out and get back on track. But that first time out where he wasn't closing, he came out and looked really good, and then got into a screaming match with the other team about whether or not he was rubbing something on his pants. But outside of that, he looked really good.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you got to scream at other people, I guess. I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think there was anything just noticeably different. I think sometimes it's the matchups. And if you go back to, where there was a bit of a meltdown with all the bunts, those were buntable situations. The first guy gets on base, he hit the guy, probably shouldn't have done that. But the next guy, Joey Weimer, when they're facing the Nationals, he was just bunting to be bunting. It happened to work out and he gets a hit. And the next guy got a single up the middle. So those are all typical normal things. Sometimes you give up hits, sometimes you hit a guy, sometimes a play doesn't get made on a bunt. That happens. But what happened after that is the game sped up and they bunted on him a couple of times. Hasn't been an issue since. I think the biggest thing was there wasn't a lot of swing and misses on the fastball. Not that there's anything wrong with the velocity, not that there's any mechanical change. I think he just needs to put the fastball in different places. And that's what we've seen. We've seen the fastball at the top of the zone work. We're starting to see the knuckle curve get more swing and miss because guys are having to respect the fastball at the top of the zone. So, yeah, I think this isn't out of the realm of, anything other than it's early in the season. And sometimes you just get beat. It doesn't mean he's any less better than he was last year, saving 30 games. I think we're going to continue to see him build off what he's already done. And I can promise you he'll get saves again this year.
We saw Brandon Sproat go out and have a really good game. And we had Pat Murphy come out and say that, William Contreras obviously was a big factor in helping him, get through that start and so forth. And Murphy, more than any manager I've covered, gives more credit to the catcher on a consistent basis. Ned and Renicky and those guys, they never talked about giving credit to the catcher after good starts by the pitchers. Murphy goes out of his way to do it for Contreras. What makes him stand out in your mind?
I'll give you a great example. Yesterday, we're in his office, and I kind of got stuck in the clubhouse. So I was like, "Well, I guess I'll go listen to Murph when he talks to the media." I guess I'm considered media, so I was in there.
Congratulations.
And
Big step in your life.
yeah, but I was curious. I was curious. So the Marlins are calling pitches from the dugout, and I remember I hated that in high school. I tried to put an end to that. College, same thing. What are we doing? There's a reason these guys come from Latin America. They don't need to be held like you don't need to give me how to call a game. They know how to call a game. They've been doing it their whole life. And a great example, and this is what I brought up to Murph. There was a sequence with Coleman Crowe, his major league debut, and it was Augustin Ramirez for the Marlins, a guy that was in the hunt for Rookie of the Year last year. The guy can swing it, no doubt. But the first two pitches were fastballs, and he gets them 0-2. He was late on the fastball. You could see he was late getting his foot down. He was waiting on the curveball. I think he was waiting on Coleman Crowe's high RPM curveball. So I brought up the Murph. I'm watching it because if you're not on the mound, you can see the game for what it is. But when you're on the mound, you don't get to see all the angles. That's where you rely on your catcher. So I wanted to know what his thoughts were that he didn't go to his curveball that he'd been doing. He didn't go to a changeup or anything else. He went back to a fastball at the top of the zone, punched him out because that was a big moment. Murph, before I even was done asking the question, he knew exactly what situation I was talking about. He goes, it came from Contreras. He goes, we all saw it. He goes, I turned to Jason Lane and he goes, it's going to be another fastball. Sure enough, that's exactly what it was. I'm telling you, when you're on the same page with your catcher and your manager and you're helping young pitchers, you should talk about it. It gives me goosebumps talking about it because when you get on the same page with a catcher or you trust your catcher in those moments, it's a game changer. It's going to make you better. It always will.
Talking with Tim Dillard, Brewers analyst from Brewers TV. Follow him on X at Dim Tillard. We'll go back and talk about Crow. I want to stay on Contreras for a second.
Sure.
Now, again, we all know we're in Milwaukee. We're in a small market. We don't have Dodger money to throw around at guys and so forth. You've watched Burns roll out. You've watched Peralta roll out. You've watched Hader roll out. But that catcher market, it's around 15 million, somewhere in that area at the top of that catcher market right here. And I think a lot of people are already under the assumption because you have Caro sitting down there at AAA that, okay, when Contreras' deal is up after next season, that they're probably going to lose William Contreras as well. But, man, the more I hear you talk about him and Murphy talk about him, it's not even as much about the bat as it is about everything else that he does. Can't you, in this market, kind of justify paying him $15 million or top catcher money in this market because of all the more young pitching that you're going to continue to deal with, knowing you can't keep superstar pitchers long-term necessarily in this market? Doesn't he become more valuable than he does if, say, you're in LA or New York where you're just going to continue to sign veteran pitchers and maybe the catcher isn't as important as Milwaukee?
I think that's a great point. I mean, a guy, if you got all these young pitchers, and listen, Caro's legit. He's a legit catcher. He will be in the big leagues. He'll be in the big leagues a long time. But if you have a rookie catcher with a bunch of rookie pitchers, where's the growth going to come from? That's asking a lot of pitching coaches that aren't as hands-on as a catcher is going to be. So, yeah, I think it makes sense. If you have this young pitching crop, you need to get a catcher that's got some experience. Don't go get, somebody that's been around, 15 years that's going to give you no offensive production. Go get the guy and keep the guy that you have. I think it makes perfect sense. He's only going to get better. And listen, there's a part of this that he just wants to get it right. Watch the guy catch. If he doesn't like what he's getting from a pitcher, he will fire back rockets.
Yes.
We saw this. I had the privilege of a lot of great catchers in my day. Martin Maldonado would do that, right? You're thinking about a sequence. You're thinking about the next pitch. You're wondering about the situation. And all of a sudden, a rocket comes back from the catcher harder than you threw it. And you're like, whoa. And he's like, hey, can we get back to what we're doing here? He does it in so many ways. He knows when to go visit the mound. He knows what to say. He gets out early. I mean, just the culture, not just with pitchers, but think about Jackson Churio. They go out and hit early before anybody else. They talk about hitting all the time. He's an incredible worker. So you're not just getting what he can do with pitchers. You're getting the whole culture that he brings to the dynamic of what it means to be a team leader, because in certain ways, that's his role.
Let's talk about Coleman Crowe now. And everybody going into this start was like, ooh, 3,000 RPMs on the curveball, and everybody getting excited about that. And then as the numbers come out, he's got even more rev rate than I think people realize on his breaking pitches once he got actually into the game. But he never looked young. He never looked nervous. I'm sure he was, but he just seemed composed and confident through that entire start to me.
Yeah, I agree. We said on the broadcast too, like one of the best compliments you can get from anybody is just saying you look like you've done it before. That was my whole goal when I first had my major league debut. I had Jason Kendall as my catcher.
Oh yeah.
I did not shake him off. I just was too scared. I was like, whatever you want. He's like, curveball. I'm like, I don't throw that, but I'll invent it right now if you But but at the same time, there's so much going through your head. He had a small village that was there in the stands. I mean, there's a lot going on, and for him to just stay poised and just in the space, he was staying in the moment. He was thinking about, how am I going to attack this guy? How am I going to execute this pitch? You could see it. You could see it unless you were blind. That goes a long way. That's when you're in the booth, watching your team play, and you're Matt Arnold going, yeah. Great job, pat on the back, just to see what the guy is capable of. And again, with the RPMs, if anybody's not certain on what it is, you could give me 20 years, and I had 20 years to play, couldn't get a ball to spin like he does. There's very few guys in baseball that can spin it like that. And what that means is when you throw a curveball or you throw a cutter, it's going to stay a strike longer than anybody else's. It's just going to stay a strike. Hitters are going to commit to it, and then it starts to move. It doesn't move early where a guy could pick it up and you're relying on that swing and miss. I mean, it's late. That's what the RPMs give. So anyway, when you're talking about a guy that he's pretty exceptional, now you get to see what kind of the character that he brings. The sky's the limit for him. I'm looking forward. I hope he's back soon. Hopefully we get to see him again.
The other part about this is, and you guys always talk about it on the broadcast as well, and you've talked about it in the past from a pitching standpoint, but you could pitch in AAA or AA or whatever, A ball. Very rarely are you going to have the type of defense behind you like you are at the major league level with this baseball team. I mean, guys diving over here, guys diving over there, making plays. I mean, you don't have to worry about, I got to strike everybody out because my defense has no range, can't get to anything. Like I've got to be perfect here. You could throw me like odds are somebody behind me is going to grab something if it's close and make a play.
I mean, yeah, you're right. We've talked about this before. In AAA, you may have your best first baseman playing left field, and you may have your best shortstop playing center. I was watching the Braves game the other day. Eli White in AAA in 2019, he played a lot of games with shortstop for me, but he also was learning center field. It's like, what? Our best shortstops playing center field, but that's kind of what you deal with.
Right.
And you're not going to always get that in the big leagues. In fact, you get guys that have won Gold Gloves. And I learned that one of my second game in the big leagues, I gave up a rocket up the middle. Ricky Weeks backhands it behind second base, throws a bullet across the infield. And I'm sitting there going, oh, wow, that's usually a hit in AAA. And I'm like, oh, good. Next pitch, rocket down the line. Gabe Kapler, who I just saw in Miami, running towards the line and left, dives, catches it. Into the warning track, getting all scraped up, jerseys, hanging on by a thread. And I'm sitting there going, dude, this is the big leagues. So that's if that doesn't give you confidence, like the rule of 60% of the time, it works every time. But the ball's put in play, it's going to be an out. And the better the defense, the higher that percentage goes. Just fill up the zone, try to get weak contact. And I think for the most part, we've seen that a lot this year. I think there's been maybe a little bit more contact than we're used to, and guys making plays. And I think that's a good sign.
He is Tim Dillard. He joins us each and every Monday at around 2:20. Again, follow him on X at Tim Dillard, Brewers TV analyst. Tim, thanks so much for coming on, man. I appreciate it.
Yep. Thanks,